Here's what happens when you truly understand the power of deliberate choice in your training. You start seeing it everywhere. You see it in a failed business venture, not as evidence that you're not an entrepreneur, but as data about what doesn't work. You see it in a relationship ending, not as proof that you're unlovable, but as clarity about what you need and what you're willing to give. You see it in a financial setback, not as a permanent condition, but as a recalibration point. The gym becomes your laboratory for understanding how growth actually works. And once you understand it there, you can apply it to every domain of your life. Most importantly, you'll take advantage of practicing this skill in the small moments, so you'll be better prepared for the big ones. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Self-Control from Fitness to Flourishing. This is the real power of building an exercise practice as your foundation for personal development. It's not just about physical health, though that matters. It's about training yourself to make the deliberate choice to see difficulty as material. It's about building the psychological capacity to interpret challenge correctly in every context. When you do this consistently in your training, it becomes your default way of looking at the world. You stop automatically accepting the trauma narrative. You start asking, what is this telling me? What can I learn? How can I use this? This inquiry becomes your compass. It guides you in your career when you face rejection or failure. It guides you in your relationships when conflict arises. It guides you in your finances when circumstances change. It guides you in your character development when you discover weakness or limitation. The principle is the same everywhere. The application is limitless. Consider what happens when you pursue an opportunity at work and it doesn't materialize. You didn't get the promotion. You didn't land the client. Your idea was rejected. The trauma narrative? I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. Why do I even try? The stoic strength narrative? This didn't work. What does that tell me about my skills, my approach, or my timing? What can I adjust? What do I need to develop? Notice the difference. One closes the door on your potential. The other opens it wider. The people who excel in their careers aren't necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who make the deliberate choice to see rejection as material. They ask what they can learn. They adjust. They try again. They integrate each setback into a more refined understanding of what works. Consider what happens when conflict arises in a relationship. Someone you care about says something that hurts, or you realize you've hurt them. The relationship is now strained. The trauma narrative. This relationship is broken. We're not compatible. This proves we shouldn't be together. The stoic strength narrative. We have a conflict. This is material. What is this conflict telling us about what we need from each other? What can we learn about ourselves through this? Again, one jumps to a conclusion. The other opens into inquiry. The relationships that thrive aren't the ones without conflict. They're the ones where both people make the deliberate choice to see conflict as material, as information, as an opportunity to understand each other more deeply and to build something increasingly more structurally sound. Consider what happens when your financial circumstances change unexpectedly. You lose income. An investment doesn't work out. An expense you didn't anticipate arises. The trauma narrative. I'm financially ruined. I'll never recover. I'm not capable of building wealth. The Stoic strength narrative. My circumstances have changed. This is information about my financial resilience and my strategy. What do I need to adjust? What can I learn about my relationship with money? What needs doing to bounce back stronger? One response leads to panic and paralysis. The other leads to clarity and action. The people who build financial strength aren't the ones who never face setbacks. They're the ones who make the deliberate choice to see setbacks as material. They ask what they can learn. They adjust their strategy. They build resistance through difficulty. And then there's the foundational domain, the one most important for a life well lived, your character. Consider what happens when you discover a weakness in yourself. You realize you're more reactive than you thought, or more short-sighted, or more afraid, or more limited than you wanted to believe. The trauma narrative? I'm fundamentally flawed. This is who I am. I can't change this. The Stoic strength narrative. I've discovered something about myself. This is material. This is exactly where I need to focus my effort. This weakness is the point at which I become stronger. One response leads to shame and resignation. The other leads to purpose and growth. The people who develop a virtuous character aren't the ones without weaknesses. They're the ones who make the deliberate choice to see what they consider flaws as material. They acknowledge them. They work with them. They integrate them into a more complete understanding of who they are and who they prefer to become. Here's what becomes clear when you apply this principle across all these domains. The more often you switch from a trauma narrative to a Stoic strength narrative, the more successful you will be. You're aiming to make this coherent way of moving through the world consistent. Not just when it's easy or convenient, but all the time. This mode of living doesn't change based on the domain. Whether you're on the dance floor or in a boardroom, in a relationship or facing a financial challenge, under a barbell or dealing with a moral dilemma, the principle applies. Adversity, like any other circumstances life offers, is material you can use to become stronger. And when you are broken by adversity, now it's the arena. It's for this you have trained. We all face our moments of breaking. Ensure you've been practicing the skill of using your Stoic strength narrative in the small moments before you find yourself thrust into the big arena, unready and unwilling. Yet, even in these dire circumstances, you still retain your power of choice. It might not go as smoothly as if you'd been practicing all along. So be it. Begin where you are. This broke me. I will use this to become stronger. You acknowledge the material at hand and start using it to your advantage. We've come to the end of the series. Here's what we've learned. The narrative you choose shapes the person you become. Difficulty, when engaged with deliberately, becomes the raw material for your transformation. This principle works the same way in any domain: moral, physical, social, financial. But exploring these ideas is only the beginning. The real power emerges when you practice this choice, when you make it in small moments, when you make it consistently. Then you'll be better able to make it even when it's difficult. Here's your final reflection. Choose one domain of your life where you're currently facing difficulty. It could be your training, your work, your relationships, your finances, or your character. Now ask yourself, am I accepting the trauma narrative about this difficulty? Or am I making the deliberate choice to see it as the material I'll use to become stronger? What would change if you made the deliberate choice right now? So, another chapter done. The journey goes on. We'll continue exploring how to build stoic strength in every domain of your life. For now, you have this framework. You have the principle. They're the opportunities you have to exercise virtuous self-control, the gold lacquer that makes your story more valuable. The rest is up to you. The choice, as always, is yours. That's it for today. Catch you next time.